So on the daily, I do work with our professional athletes here with the New Orleans Saints, but I have so many friends and families that really enjoy listening to nutritional information and getting tips from me. And so really putting that together, my knowledge of sport nutrition and then just regular healthy wellness, it really does help me realize that everybody can benefit from proper nutrition and from a performance standpoint.
Yay Networks.
A quick note before we dive into today's podcast. If you like what you hear, I would love for you to subscribe to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, wherever you download your podcast. It would also be incredible if you take a minute to rate and review this podcast. Those things do matter and they really help us. I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. Performance fueling it's a term that we use when we're talking about athletes and how we fuel athletes for optimizing that performance, that recovery, helping them be their best in whatever that sport may be. The performance fueling that we'll talk about and the concepts of that, it's not just for professional athletes. It's not just for college level, high level athletes. It's for all of us. So whatever we are doing, whether it's a cycle class, if it's a boot camp, if it's, we're learning a new sport, it is essential that we fuel our bodies optimally. And it's us, it's our kids, it's all levels, all ages, all skills. And so today, it's not just me talking performance fueling. I am joined by Jamie Meeks. She is sports dietitian for the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to have Jamie do kind of her own intro, her own bio and kind of background. Jamie is one of my favorite dietitians. I'm excited for you to hear not only about her role with the Saints and the professional football players that she's working with, but also kind of her backstory and how she got there, her work with LSU athletes, her own, performance fueling that she's doing for herself. So we're going to be talking about all of this, her, working with the pros and how does that apply to us? What are things that we can learn from this, things that we can take away, some really easy strategies nutritionally, some supplementation we'll be talking about, whether it's simple things like protein. We'll also be talking about creatine, some of the misconceptions there. And then last, we're going to have kind of a rapid fire Q&A with Jamie just about herself personally. So I am excited to have you. Let's see. All right, y'all, we're going to stop after that where we say about herself personally. So I am happy to have y'all all here for the ride with us. So welcome, Jamie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
This is our second podcast together.
I think it was 2019 that
It really was. Well, yeah. I just started the podcast in 2019.
Yes.
So I was probably really new. Yeah. Well, thank you for being one of the first guests. And thank you for coming back. So let's talk. Well, then we are certainly not, it is not old ground that we're covering. Tell us about, tell us your official title. I'm not sure if I got it proper, sports dietitian with the New Orleans Saints.
Right. Director of sports nutrition, but sports dietitian's fine.
Yeah. And director of sports nutrition, you do a lot, the full scope of that. So I want to talk a bit about that. Well, just tell us that. I guess tell us you've been there 9 years.
Yes.
And what does the position look like? What does it entail day to day?
Right. A lot of people think that I sit in an office and I make meal plans for every single player and look at what they're eating and tell them, eat that, don't eat that. It actually looks nothing like that whatsoever. There is a lot of education one-on-one with the players. I do some team education as well, different presentations, but it is a lot of moving around when it comes to food service and making sure that we are planning menus that our athletes will enjoy, and then also make sure that they are nutritionally
optimized,
exactly.
And so, that's at the training facility. And then it's also when y'all are traveling, away games.
Yep. So I work with our head chef at the Saints facility, and then also every single hotel that we travel to. I will work with their banquet staff with our menus for the hotels, and then anything that's on the airplane, and then also that we feed them at the different stadiums.
Even the airplane. I didn't realize that. Wow.
Yep.
So you're the Saints training facility, having been there, that's a kind of a space where they'll come and go during specific meal times for breakfast, for lunch. They also do they have snacks available at any time there?
Yes. So we have a full fueling station available for the guys with smoothies and different just kind of grab and go snacks. And then we also have coolers with Greek yogurt and all sorts of snacks in there.
And then at the hotel, so it'll be, everything from their meal the night before to breakfast the morning of, or what they have maybe even in their room on their flight to the game. What about the flight after the game?
Yeah. So it's actually, post game, I have a vendor feed the team right when they walk out of the locker room to get onto the bus.
Okay.
And so usually that's like barbecue. That's the most popular, whether it be chicken sandwiches. Sometimes like if we're in New York, we'll do like pizzas or like Chicago deep dish pizzas. Right. Philly, we'll do Philly cheesesteaks.
It's sort of like the splurge meal you would have, like if someone's kind of thinking in that way.
Right. I mean, literally the last thing that a football player wants after a long game is chicken and broccoli.
Right.
They just need something that they enjoy.
Right.
And they deserve it.
And like they're disciplined all through the week, and then they have that. So lots going on behind the strategy there. You've been in the role 9 years. We said you are the first full-time dietitian the Saints had.
Correct.
And for a while you did Saints and Pelicans.
Correct.
And now we also have a second dietitian that works with the Pelicans as well.
Yes. Ariel works with the Pelicans. But we continue to work together and pick each other's brains. So we work well.
It's a beautiful thing that the pro teams are seeing the benefit of having that full-time dietitian dedicated to those teams. Before that, tell us about LSU and the programming that you built there.
Yeah. So I was also the first dietitian at LSU, and we literally started from ground zero
for the athletes.
The athletes, that's correct. And so it really just took a lot of experimenting. A lot of guys are not used to having a dietitian there to help them and guide them through what they should eat.
And this is especially, are we talking 15 years ago? How long were you at LSU?
So let's see. I was hired in 2011.
Yeah.
So
12 years. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And through those years, we really incorporated a lot of different educational opportunities. And then there was also the deregulation of the feeding rules with the NCAA. So we were allowed to feed them more foods and meals and snacks. And so we built 3 fueling stations for them. And then in the works was the new dining facility that's now built at the football operations building. But I had left before that groundbreaking happened.
This is what I'm going to ask you next, is one of the things that I'm so impressed by this. You didn't, Jamie acts as if she was, I guess, director of sports nutrition or with a similar title at LSU, as if it just happened, but it didn't just happen. Like, you created that role. So, I know that we're going to be getting into more of the nuts and bolts about nutrition, but for those of y'all listening, I think this is just a really cool thing that any of us can learn from, Jamie's experience of having a passion for something, seeing a void, that there was a need for this, and literally putting together and pitching to the leadership there, here's what you're missing, here's what you're lacking, and here's how I can help you to create this. Yeah. So tell us kind of how that came to be.
Yeah. So I was in my master's at LSU, and I started volunteering at the athletic department.
We should also say you were a cheerleader.
I did cheer
for LSU.
I did. Yes. My husband as well.
So you're a cheerleader with LSU. So you were already had these connections within the sports division
world.
There. Yeah.
Right. So I went to the athletic training room and said, hey, I can volunteer my time. I'm a registered dietitian doing my master's. I would love to do some consults for athletes that need help. And so it started off with track athletes and gymnastics and whoever needed help. And then it turned into team talks. And then I talked to my advisor about this, and she's, how about you make a business plan? And so I put together.
So that was all just part of your master's kind of special projects that you were doing.
So it really wasn't even part of my master's, but I was just talking to my advisor about it and just came up. Mm-hmm. And so I spent my last semester of grad school putting together a business plan. And then once I graduated, they liked it and hired me on.
So in grad school, it wasn't even part of grad school that you were doing these presentations. You were doing it because
On my own.
you just loved it.
Yep.
And you saw that there's a need for this. You have the expertise. You also had the experience in their world to some degree. And so you're
Correct.
like, I can come in and I can help you.
Yep.
Volunteered your time in this and was like, somebody needs to do this.
Yes. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No pay. So,
Right. Right. And so who did you pitch it to?
so at first it was Shelly Molnix in the athletic training department and Jack Marucci. And, you know, they
What are
liked
their
it.
roles? They're athletic trainers.
Yeah. They
there?
were
Okay.
like head athletic
Okay.
trainers. And so they took it to the head ADs and got it approved.
Did you have to present to them also?
So no, they took it.
How old were you at that time?
I was 22 or 23.
Y'all see why I'm
young.
like, it's so impressive, you know? And truly, like, I remember as that was happening and learning that was happening and that you were doing this. And I was like, I'm so proud of you for this. I mean, because it's a lot to have the foresight to see that there's a need for this. This isn't currently in place. And to be at that age, you said 22, to say, I'm capable, I've got this, I'm your person, and to put it all together. I mean, I'm sure when you went in to present the first time, did you feel really intimidated?
Yes. Very.
You probably remember exactly
Right.
what you were wearing and everything
Yes.
else.
And like, I mean, I didn't even really know what I was pitching for. Like, I knew
Right.
I wanted to be a full-time dietitian for the athletes, but they had no like blueprint on what that entailed. And so
Right.
those next few years was building that. And now LSU, they have 4 full-time dietitians. They have this huge department. It's so awesome to see how much it's grown.
Isn't that so cool? Similarly with the nutrition that we have, we have Eat Fit where we work with the restaurants and all, but that was sort of born of the work that our client-facing dietitians do inside of our fitness center. And similarly, it was in 1999, there wasn't a program in place. And they knew they wanted some sort of nutrition, but they didn't really even know what a dietitian did. But the fitness center had kind of put out, like they were hiring for a dietitian, but without really knowing what the scope would be. And so I applied for it. And similarly, I think I was 24 and I got the position and then kind of was like, okay, I don't even know what the scope is going to be. And similarly, like you have the vision and it can start with this, but then you also know beyond that, the possibilities are endless and it can just keep growing. And so now to see, we have multiple dietitians and it's expanded into Eat Fit. And I remember when I had first applied for the job, one of the people who was kind of one of the original, I guess, owners of the club who had developed the club before he sold it to Oshner. I remember he was like, one day I want to have like you and like 12 dietitians. And I remember thinking, I think he might have lost his mind. I don't even know how this is possible. Like, I hope that I can have a job for just me. And so it is to have that idea and then to look back and see. And sometimes I'm sure if you're like me, like we don't do that enough to look back and say, wow, look at this. And now look with the Saints, you had done the Saints and the Pels and now it's 2 full-time dietitians and then the reach that you have is that. So yeah.
Yeah. It's really cool to look back.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank
I think
you.
it's amazing. So as we talk about athletes and fueling, there's so many things. And so just for our listeners, we're going to we'll probably be jumping around a little bit, but there's what do I eat before a workout? There's should I eat or drink anything during a workout? What do I eat after a workout? What about hydration? What about electrolytes? And then, we'll save supplements a little bit for after, but what do you say just for, I guess, starting with the NFL players that you're working with, what do you see as like the biggest priorities for them?
Yeah, I would actually this time of year, definitely hydration.
Yeah.
Is huge. And they know they have to hydrate, but I think timing for them is an issue. They feel that maybe they can wake up and just pound some water and Gatorade and be fine, but they don't realize that it takes time for your body to intake all that fluid and hold on to it. And so you're just not peeing it out.
Right.
So teaching them the timing and different products that we do have available to make sure that they are getting some extra sodium and so that they're okay.
So let's talk hydration. We can kind of start there. And y'all, what we're talking about with the pros, we can also extrapolate that for ourselves. We can, and you tell us, Jamie, but I would think a lot of what we're going to be talking about, especially in the hydration space, we can extrapolate it for our younger athletes, our student athletes, you know. So what are kind of the guidelines that you would give us on that you give the athletes on hydration, and what are some of your favorite products for them?
Yeah. So I always tell them that hydration is a process. There's 3 steps. The first one is pre-hydrate, and that's just not the morning of or right before. That's the days leading up, and that's a mix of water, possibly an electrolyte, sports drink, or even just other fluids. Those count as well to make sure that you are getting hydrated for that event. And then the second step is mid-hydration, and that is continuing to hydrate throughout your activity, workout, game, whatever it may be. And it could include water, like I said, or sports drink, depending on how long and intense it is, or how the weather is. Is it hot? Is it humid, like it is here in New Orleans? So if it's just a short walk, very low intensity, water's just fine. But if you're a heavy sweater and you feel like it's going to be a little bit more intense, a sports drink, could help out. And then the third step is post hydration, and that's obviously refueling with water and electrolytes, but even some extra protein and carbohydrates to refuel your body literally from head to toe. And so you want to replenish so that you are fully recovered and then can do it again the next day.
When someone asks, well, how much fluid should I have?
Mm-hmm. So the typical recommendation in a whole day is about half your body weight in ounces, plus more from what you're losing. So you can kind of take that as your general recommendation. Before you would, I would say maybe the morning of or right before your workout, about 16 ounces of water. And then throughout your workout, if it is a long one, every 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 4 to 8 ounces of fluid. And then post-workout, and this is something we do with our guys, is we weigh them in right before they practice and then weigh them out and then see how much weight they've lost. And keep in mind that is not fat loss,
Right.
That is purely sweat. And so we want to make sure they put that back in. So if for every pound lost, it's about 16 to 20 ounces of fluid.
Extra.
So
to kind of recap it, and basically take your body weight, divide it by 2, and that's about how many ounces we need. The way I asked Jamie, the question was, so how much fluid do we need? That's often not the question that people ask. They say, how much water do I need? And so know that any type of fluid that doesn't contain alcohol essentially is going to be hydrating to us. And so if that's going to be even like an herbal tea, if it's going to be water, if it's a smoothie, if it's a soup, if it's any kind of liquid, any kind of fluid is going to count to that. So as Jamie was saying, take your body weight, divide it by 2. That's how many ounces of fluid we need. And then keeping in mind that, a pound is 16 ounces. And so weighing the athletes before and after is how they know, okay, if this person may have lost 3 pounds, 5 pounds of sweat during the workout. What's the largest sweat loss you've seen that you can remember on an athlete during a workout?
18.
18
18
pounds.
pounds.
And how long was the workout?
So it was a practice. So they're in pads outside. This was training camp. So practice is about 2 hours, maybe a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. I was preparing myself for like 8. 18 pounds.
Yeah.
Holy smokes. And was it like a linebacker?
It was a D lineman.
Yeah. So was his weight like around 300?
Yeah. So our D linemen are typically like 290. So and I have this great, I guess, website or app that it's through Gatorade. And we have these Gatorade scales, which we have their profiles. So they just step on the scale, they press their name, it records their first weight, they do it again right after practice, and then it's automatically sent to me on my app, and I can see as they're weighing in how much they have lost. And then, so when I saw that, I was pretty in shock.
So that was about, I'm doing the math really quickly in my head. That's probably about 18 pounds, like rounding up to 20. If he was, that might be like, I don't know, 15% of his body weight. I don't even know.
Yeah, I can't do it.
I know I can't do it that fast, and I don't want to take my phone out to do the calculator. But that's a lot.
It's a lot, and they
Wow.
usually, the research shows that 2% loss of your weight can really derail performance. So his was extremely above that 2%.
Right. That's kind of the references. Even 2% is, and so if we were going to say like 2% of 290, I've got the calculator out, y'all. That's 6 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so he lost 3 times that.
So 3 times that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
You also mentioned, so Gatorade has these like fancy scales and the app that gets sent to you. Gatorade also has those sweat patches.
Yes.
I played around with one last year, and have you used one yet?
So not on myself, but with our guys.
Yeah,
With you
it's
guys.
really cool.
It really is.
And so they're relatively inexpensive. They're maybe, I think, like 2 of them for $24 or something like that. And you can look for them online. And you put the sweat patch on, and it will help to, and you kind of plug in like what type of exercise you're doing, where it is, what the conditions are, like I think age, height, weight, gender, and things like that. And it will tell you if you are, low, moderate, or high as far as sodium concentration, and then also volume.
Correct.
So it's looking at, am I a heavy sweater? You may have heard Jamie say that phrase earlier. If you're a heavy sweater, you're losing lots of volume of sweat. And then also, well, what composition is it? Is it very watery sweat without a lot of sodium concentration? Or is it very salty sweat? And all of those things would be guiding Jamie into how she's going to coach them and how to replenish.
Right, like a hydration profile. And something I noticed once the result popped up on the app, if I swiped right, and it tells you exactly how many milligrams of sodium. And so I can take that, milligrams per sodium per hour. And so I can take that and help the guys decide what type of product they should be taking during practice and how often. And so it's pretty cool, a pretty cool tool.
What are some of the products that you recommend for hydration that might not be necessarily, because I know that there's probably different sponsorships and stuff that affect what products are maybe on the field or like, on the sidelines for the guys, but even kind of separately, just like your recommendations for Jamie or Molly, like what are some of the things? I have some of my favorite sports drinks that are high electrolyte, high sodium content. Of course, y'all are hearing us talk. And so when someone is losing high amounts of salty sweat, we often think we want to limit our sodium intake, but in those situations, salt's a good thing.
Salt's a good thing.
And
we
so,
like the salt shaker
right,
at the facility.
right. You don't want to limit this. And so we also talked about having electrolyte beverages before a workout. If someone were to eat a snack prior to a workout, like for me, I love cheese on an almond flour tortilla. Well, the cheese is pretty salty. The almond flour tortilla is pretty salty. And so I'll have that before workout and just water because I'm using that food source as my sodium source, And so if the workout's an hour or hour and a half, that's typically enough. And I wouldn't need to add that sodium in the sports drink. I don't typically love drinking sports drinks. I like just pure water during a workout. So that's my preference. My husband, on the flip side, he really likes having that sports drink that's going to give him that sodium through it. So with that, what are some of your favorites?
Yeah. So, I mean, the first one, and everybody sees on the sideline, we do use Gatorade. Yes, they are a sponsor, but Gatorade started the whole sports drink. It was literally created on a football field at University of Florida. That's why it's Gatorade. And they've really come a long way with their research. The Gatorade Sports Science Institute, they do tons of research. And so Gatorade is formulated correctly to make sure that it is a hydrating and a fuel source for these athletes and for active individuals. Gatorade is not meant for you to just sit around and drink and play video games, watch TV. It is meant for the active, sweating individual. So don't be afraid of the sugar in there.
What if somebody needs more sodium, more higher concentration?
Yes. And so we use products such as the Right Stuff, and it's a little pouch, very, very, I would say maybe over 1,000 milligrams of sodium in there per pouch. We also use.
Do you put that into water or do you put it into a sports drink?
So you can put it into water, but guys, if they need just a quick source of electrolytes, and they don't want to drink a whole thing of water, they'll just shoot it and then follow it up.
It's
with
like
water.
a liquid pouch.
Liquid pouch.
Okay.
It's called the Right Stuff. It was created for NASA, and then
that's also really good for people who do have extreme muscle cramping. And sometimes they need that very concentrated source. I haven't heard of that, so I'm glad to know about that. The Right Stuff.
Drip Drop is a favorite of the guys, and it's just a powder that they can put in their water, different flavors.
Higher concentration of sodium.
Yes. And then we also use, people call it Element or LMNT.
Yes.
That's become a very popular item at the facility.
It looks like it's the letters LMNT. And so it's LMNT, which is element, is it's like a play on that. Yeah. So that's also very high sodium. So those are great for athletes, kids, adults, professional athletes who are losing large amounts of sweat and or salty sweat. And so don't be afraid of the sodium concentration in those for healthy people who are in those, activities. The person who does have hypertension needs to watch their sodium intake. That's not what we're talking about right now, So I also like it's locally owned My High.
Yes.
With Matt Flynn.
Yeah, Matt Flynn. Mm-hmm.
And so he has the regular My High packs, and then he has I think he calls it My High, like zero sugar or something. And I like that a lot for the person who they may not need that extra carb source, but they are losing a lot of sweat or salty sweat. So I love that product.
Yeah.
Also, any other favorites that you say?
They love pickle juice shots.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yes. So, yes, it does have a good bit of sodium because of literally the pickle juice, but it helps with cramping on the spot. And I've seen it help multiple times.
Have you and I talked about this?
We have.
And the why?
Yes.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It is really awesome.
So if you think about someone can be having if you think about a Charlie horse type muscle spasm that someone gets and is debilitating in that moment, you can't move. And like Jamie's saying, it's the second they consume it, the second it's hitting their mouth, that cramp is dissipating. And it doesn't make sense that it's the sodium alone in it because it doesn't even have time to hit your GI tract and make it to your muscles to help with that kind of the spasm that's happening there. But pickle juice has acetic acid in it, and acetic acid, it's actually it's kind of like what would be in vinegar or something like that. And that acetic acid is hitting these nerve endings basically that are sort of in our throat. Mm-hmm. So as soon as it's hitting our mouth and we're starting to swallow it, it's nerve endings that are essentially in our throat, and it's sending these immediate impulses to those muscles that are all bunched up, bundled up, cramped up, and causing them to release. And so that's really how that pickle juice is such a miracle worker. Before the why came out, it was such a head scratcher. How does this happen instantaneously?
Instantly. Yeah, we had a guy come off the field last week, and he was leaning over the smoothie bar, and I was like, "Hey, are you okay?" He's like, "I'm cramping," as he was drinking a pickle juice. And then he finished it, and then he went and did his lift because he was fine.
Right. Just
I was like, oh, I guess you're good.
That show's over. Right. Yep. Move on. So hydration, half your body weight in ounces. If you have if it's an appropriate environment, I think that people who maybe obsess about weight, they obsess on the scale. That's probably not the best person that we want to have you weigh before and after a workout. I would say this could be really helpful though if you have kids who maybe in football practice or high school or other sports where maybe it's also new to them and it's something that maybe they're doing a level of training they've never done before. And it's not something that maybe they even need to do all the time, but maybe the first, I'm kind of looking at Jamie for validation, the first couple of weeks or even the first week, just to have them have an idea.
Just show them this is how much you're losing. And then it kind of gets in their brain and they can kind of visualize, okay, I'm losing this. I got to put it back in.
And even showing what that looks like separately in a bottle. I think also with adults, if there's certain workouts you're doing a boot camp class, you're doing a ride class, and you're comfortable with stepping on the scale, then stepping on the scale before and after, maybe once or twice. Again, it kind of gives you that idea, but it doesn't need to be something that we are not the Saints players. We are not professional football players, and our body is our career in this way. Those guys, Jamie is there truly looking at nutrition and fueling and that recovery and that rehydration. It is a science that is part of those guys' careers. That's not the case with us. We don't need to make it an obsession like that, but it's a nice to know. And it's informative to do a couple of times and just kind of see where things are.
Right.
Even if someone is just doing, a moderate cardio outside, the mornings right now, as we're recording this, it's in June in New Orleans, then the mornings are so wildly humid, you don't even have to exercise. Right. And you're losing so much sweat. And so when people are feeling, if they exercise in the morning and they're feeling so fatigued or depleted through the day, a lot of times when we ask, well, what are you drinking? They're only drinking water. They're only replenishing with water. So we've got to make sure we're getting those electrolytes in there. So what are some of the other big priorities that we can kind of extrapolate from the pros to ourselves and kids?
Yeah. So, and it kind of seems obvious, but eating enough.
Mm-hmm.
And we all have busy lives, and you hear, hey, I didn't have time to eat breakfast, getting the kids to school and getting to work. And then by the time lunch comes, you're starving, and then you may choose something that you didn't plan to eat, and you're way over your calories and things like that. So going back to our pro guys, you would think that they would eat on a good regimen, but these guys sometimes aren't eating enough. And so educating them on how many calories they need and what that actually looks like. I can't just tell them, hey, you need 3,500 calories. They don't know what that is. And so giving them examples, and we have a cool app that all our guys are on. It's called Note Meal, and I can send them meal plans through that, exactly what their macronutrient needs are, and giving them examples of breakfast, snacks, lunch, put them on a regimen. I'm not saying they have to follow it, but it does help them.
It gives that structure.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an app that's more that they would work with a dietitian. It's not something the public is going to download. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
And so when we talk about like how much they need, talk to us a little bit about like timing, like just for the average person listening or their kids, like kind of the nutrient timing.
Right. Nutrient timing is huge. You may let's talk about a high school athlete.
Mm-hmm.
They'll eat breakfast, and listen, some high school athletes, they might eat a Pop-Tart.
Mm-hmm.
Not too good. And then they don't eat until lunch, and who knows what that may entail at school. And then right after lunch, end of the day happens, and they go straight into practice, and they don't have any snacks. So they may have eaten 800 calories leading up to their practice. And of course, they're going to burn a lot of calories, and they could be fatigued midway through. And it's not because it was a hard workout, it's because they're underfueled.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's really important to make sure that the quality of the food is good and nutritionally sound. Then also making sure that we are squeezing in snacks in between to make sure that that athlete or person is optimally fueled.
And with school, that's especially important because kind of the example Jamie gave, breakfast may be at 7:30. Some schools, they're on different kind of shifts for lunch. And so if someone's on the early lunch, they may have lunch as early as, let's say, 11:30. And then school's out and they've got practice. They may be practicing till 5, 6 o'clock. And so they ate at 11:30. And if they're not planning, then they're running on just fumes at that point. Or, breakfast could be at 6:30 in the morning and they're on late lunch, which isn't until 1. And so what could they have like mid-morning as that snack? And so for a lot of times that same thing is going to apply to us as adults, looking at our schedule of from when we wake up and then what our schedule is through work. What do we need to have either at our desk or in our bag or whatever that's going to give us that fuel source through the day? Kind of on that, what do you look at, like every 3 to 4 hours?
Yeah, it's typically every 3 to 4 hours. And like you said, planning ahead, keeping snacks at your desk, in your bag, in your purse, just to have available so that you're not tempted to be like, oh, well, I don't have anything. I'm going to stop at the convenience store and get some chips and a soda. So
what are some of your favorite snacks that work well for you personally or that work well for the athletes that you work with?
Yeah. So I love turkey wraps. So I'll just take a tortilla. I'll put some Laughing Cow cheese spread on there, a bit of turkey on there, and that's my snack. Greek yogurt. If I have a sweet tooth, I'll mix in some dark chocolate chips. I love peanut butter. So banana with peanut butter is a go-to. Different protein and granola bars as well. I love Quest, Kind bars, and there's so many out there right now.
So many bars right now. On the tortillas, I love that too. And what I like about it is that like it doesn't squish. Like a sandwich is going to be like a soggy kind of mess, maybe depending on where you are through the day. But something about that tortilla or that wrap is it's going to hold its shape. And so you do the wrap with the spread and the turkey. I mentioned that I like the tortilla with the cheese on it. There's so many different types of tortillas, y'all. You could do like the regular whole grain wrap. The one that I mentioned is the almond flour one. It's a little bit lower carb. And I've talked about that before on this podcast that I, using like the continuous glucose monitor. have found that that actually works to like keep my glucose levels steady at the, 100-ish, whereas having something that was higher carb before a workout, I was finding I was dropping into the 50s.
Okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. I really loved the idea that I was going to have a high intensity workout, like learning tennis, which to me was like really hard because it's so unfamiliar, especially when I first started. It felt so anaerobic, because it was like, it was. And it was so challenging, so anaerobic, so high intensity. And I was like, well, this is a great opportunity to have those sea salt, pink Himalayan sea salt kettle chips that I love so much from Costco. Like we're going to have that as my carb source before the workout. And I'd put it with like a little, piece of cheese or something. And Jamie, it would bring me to like 120, like as expected. And then I was like dropping and I'm like, why? And I thought I was just, like we said earlier, I thought this is just a really hard workout and I'm crashing energy wise. And then I had the opportunity to test one of the glucose monitors and I saw, wow, I'm going into like the 50s, like within 30 minutes.
Wow.
And so I was like, this is strange. And so sadly, like backed off of the chips and put that tortilla in. And so I would not have normally recommended that to someone before a higher intensity workout. But then for me, that worked out well. So all of that is to say, experiment with what works. And so for me, that tortilla with the cheese, they're both a little bit higher protein. That tortilla is a little higher protein than a regular one. And I just kind of melt it. I fold it over. It sticks to itself. I stick it in a little bag and I have that for later. And I love it. I actually leave it out in the car and it stays hot for a little bit. It's not like it's the whole day out there. But so finding things like that. You mentioned Greek yogurt. There's so many brands of Greek yogurt, y'all, and there's a lot that are naturally low in sugar. They're sweetened with the natural plant-based low or no calorie sweeteners. I love like the Faye if someone's down for like the plain Greek yogurt. Chobani makes a plain Greek yogurt. I like the ones that have some fat in them versus the fat-free. Trader Joe's has some that are low fat versus fat-free, similar to like the Faye. Yep. Chobani, I haven't seen a Chobani low fat, but the Chobani full fat is still not a high fat, item. It's still way more protein than anything else, but the texture and creaminess of it is so good. Awesome. And then there's brands like Oikos, Oikos, has flavored Greek yogurts that don't have any artificial sweetener. Chobani has the Chobani zero sugar now. And so there's a lot of options that you can do Greek yogurt, either plain or flavored, without having a whole bunch of artificial stuff and also without having a whole bunch of sugar or added sugar, we should say. Cottage cheese is another good one for those who like it because it's also high in sodium, high in salt, like we were talking about earlier. Cottage cheese is a love it or hate it thing. Yeah.
I mix it in some smoothies and it actually tastes really good.
So our cafe uses cottage cheese as a secret ingredient for creamy sauces.
Nice.
They puree it to get the lumps out. And so because you could put like cottage cheese in something like a bolognese or even like a creamed spinach and it's very neutral. Whereas if you try to do that with like plain yogurt has a tartness.
Right.
And so cottage cheese slips in that creaminess and slips in that protein, but you have to get the lumps out first. Otherwise it would be a giveaway. And then on protein bars, you mentioned Quest, Some Kind bars. There's so many. There's a brand called No Cow that is a good vegan option. It's a love it or hate it on there for those. The Quest bars are always a crowd pleaser. There's one that's called Cando, Cando, and it is sort of a crisp, like a Rice Krispie crisp type. I've seen it at Whole Foods, but that might be one to try. That's kind of just a different texture like that. I did a segment just recently on it. I was trying to think of the other one. Costco has some that have a variety of good bars there. But looking for if you're going to do a bar, typically one that's high protein, low sugar.
Typically, yeah. That's my go-to at least.
We've got the carbs are going to find their way in. The everything that you just heard Jamie say as far as kind of her go-to snacks, those are things that we have to strategize of how am I going to get that protein in there. The carbs are usually the easy. It could be whole grain crackers. It could be fruit. Like that's the easy part that can be shelf stable. It's going to be something that's easy to sit there. But like the protein's usually the part we're going to have to plan.
Right. And a lot of people, when they think of a snack, they think of things, chips, a piece of fruit, which is, fruit fine, but pairing it with that protein, they don't think about that part.
Right.
I really think that's foundational to keep you full. to make it a good, sound snack that won't leave you hungry 30 minutes later.
Right. Like there's very few times that this is how I feel. Tell me how you feel. There are very few times that I'm going to recommend just that carb alone for any type of a snack or fueling opportunity. And when I say that, y'all, I mean like not just a piece of fruit or not just whole grain crackers or not just oatmeal or toast. You know, I can't think of a time that I would usually have anyone do that by itself. Almost
I'm always pairing it.
always. If it's before a workout, if it's before exercise, but then also if it's after exercise, because talk to us about kind of that ratio in recovery.
Yeah. So recovery, that's, we started out with hydration and then timing of meals. Recovery is huge as well, especially for people that are working out intensely or part of some sort of sport that's daily. Your body has to be ready to go. So when it comes to recovery, we want to make sure that, depending on your size, but about 20 to 30 grams of protein post-workout. And it doesn't have to be right after. You don't have to have that shaker bottle of protein powder right after. It can be a little bit later on, just making sure that you are getting your protein in for the day. Our bigger guys, it's usually between 30 and 40 grams post-workout. And it doesn't have to be, like I said, protein powder. It can be a meal, grilled chicken. It can be some sort of fish. It can be real food. If you are on the go, that's where the protein comes into play.
And even if someone, makes a sandwich and has that with them, or like you mentioned, that turkey wrap, that could be part of that recovery.
Correct.
So having that protein there. And so even if it's, before a workout, we would be pairing that carbohydrate with protein. If it's after a workout, we're going to be pairing that carbohydrate with the protein. Probably the only time that there would be carbohydrate alone would be maybe mid-workout, especially if it's an endurance athlete and we were going to have them doing something that would just be that carb source to fuel that really long extended.
And that's what we do. When we're talking about sports and pros, halftime. That's a perfect example of where these guys are doing. We're using applesauce pouches, a Rice Krispie treat, maybe some sort of gummy. Some guys like pretzels. They like something salty, but
fast digested.
Right.
So all of those things that Jamie just said, like if we're just sitting at our desk, they would kind of lift us up, rev us up, and then go away pretty quickly. Our energy would drop again pretty quickly. But for these guys, the idea is that you're giving them that carb source that is energizing them through that second half, but not requiring a lot of digestion. And that's kind of the idea.
Right.
And so same thing, like if someone's running a marathon, these guys aren't running a marathon, but it's the same thing. It's so intense. You don't want them to be eating, I don't know, like a pulled pork sandwich at halftime because it's too much to then go and do this high intensity performance.
Right. And, we choose things that are appealing as well, because we do want them to consume something.
Right.
Some guys don't want anything.
Nerves and stuff like that.
Their mind's on the game, but we do want to make sure that we give them something. So something as appealing as a Rice Krispie treat or pretzels or orange slices, things like that, they'll go for.
Appealing and also familiar. They know how it's going to affect them. Like it's not anything new. On the topic of recovery, let's talk about creatine.
Yes.
How do you you'll use creatine or recommend it for pre-workout, post-workout? What's kind of your approach with that?
Yeah. So the research says timing isn't that huge of a deal.
Like when you're supplementing with creatine is less important.
Right. So it's not like, for example, caffeine, where you take it before workout and you feel that caffeine lift. You're not going to feel creatine in the moment. Creatine, you want your muscles to become saturated, which helps your body produce energy. So your body is burning energy, and your ATP and your creatine and your body can't keep up. But having saturated muscles with creatine, usually with supplementation, helps your body create that energy or that ATP a little bit quicker.
So I'll just kind of restate how Jamie said it. Like our bodies, we have a limited supply of it. And for our bodies to, especially when it's at high energy, that high output, there's like a lag time, and our body's like regenerating the compounds in our body that produce that energy for that high energy output. And so supplementing with it helps that. And you heard Jamie say, she said almost always with supplementation, we can get creatine through food, and our bodies do produce it. But in order to have these levels that we see that are effective with that, it's almost always going to be through supplementation. Years ago, and not even that long ago, 5 years, maybe, definitely 10 years ago, we thought of creatine as, yeah, it's for football players. It's also for bodybuilders and that kind of a thing. But it's, you and I both take it.
Yeah.
And, so for our listeners, if you met Jamie, I feel like Jamie and I are kindred spirits too.
I really agree.
When we pulled up to do it, like we have the same car, we have the same same line of career. And so, yes. So Jamie is, someone that if you follow, we'll put your social too. If someone wants to follow you on social, you can see, because you're doing, sometimes you'll post workouts and things like that.
Yeah, some nutrition information.
And so the fear that someone would say, oh, I'm afraid if I took creatine, I would bulk up. If you're watching Jamie on her Instagram account and you see her, you will see what we're talking about. There's not that fear. But when you look at what the benefit is, it helps with that energy production. It's not immediately going to make you bigger, stronger, faster, but it's helping you to have that energy to do that workout a notch more intensely, would you say?
Exactly. Yeah. My workouts feel, I don't want to say they feel easy, but I just feel so much better while I'm working out.
Right.
And I really have seen and felt better results, if that makes sense. I just had a baby a year ago, and I'm still continuing to, drop a little bit, and I'm on creatine. So don't really say creatine is a weight gainer supplement. It can be, depending on your calorie intake and,
if you're lifting really heavy.
If you're lifting really heavy, yes, it can help with weight gain, but it shouldn't be called a weight gain supplement.
Right. So it's going to help give us that. You could almost think of it as like that extra edge of energy, but it's not in the way that you would get it from a caffeine.
Correct.
But where you might be doing a workout that feels really challenging, it's just a smidge less challenging, something that maybe felt like I can't do that, or that's like just beyond the limit of what you're able to do. You'll feel like you can do that. Or you'll also feel like that recovery from that workout is a little bit more effective, maybe a little bit less soreness or fatigue or so after. So those are, some of the benefits that I've seen, that some of the benefits that we see research on. I know that Jamie has felt. The 5 grams a day is, you can do a loading phase. You and I both do 5 grams a day. Mm-hmm. Do you have and a lot of the athletes that you work with also do?
Yeah. I have none of our guys, to my knowledge, have done the loading phase. They've always done about 5 to 10 grams a day.
True, because if they're really bigger guys, they may do 10. Any brands that you are kind of like lean more toward? Yeah,
so we make sure that all of the supplements that any of the guys take are third-party tested, meaning that they are tested for banned substances and that the label matches the ingredient list and vice versa. So some of the brands that we like are Thorne. We like Clean Athlete, and that's clean with a K. Momentous has a good creatine and other products. And then Cytosport, theirs is monohydrate, that's third-party certified.
Okay, cool. No, so good. All of those are also probably good companies just to look at other products that they offer. So creatine, not being afraid of that, looking at it as helping to enhance performance, helping to enhance recovery, helping you do a little bit harder workout perhaps. And some of the benefits that you may see would be that workout feels a little better. You may see strength gains, but again, not because you're not going to just take it and sit there and get stronger, but it's helping you do the workout to become stronger. There's also, in older people, I would say people, over their 60s, 70s and up, there's research there that supplementing with creatine helps to reduce what's called sarcopenia. And sarcopenia is the natural loss of muscle as we age. And it's not inevitable, but it's almost inevitable that if we are not doing something proactively to minimize muscle loss as we age, it's going to happen. And so being proactive to reduce muscle as we age is going to be making sure we get enough protein. And usually we would say at least 0.5 gram of protein per pound of body weight, up to maybe 1 gram of protein per pound, but making sure you've got that protein all through the day, like Jamie and I were talking about, making sure you're doing some sort of resistance training. So you're constantly keeping those muscles challenged. Those are the things that we would say you got to do something to prevent that loss, or it's going to probably happen. And adding creatine is another that we can add in there. And also some mental benefits, cognitive benefits. Tavis Piatoli, a colleague of Jamie and I's, he and I did a podcast on creatine a couple of months ago. So I'll link to that too. So if you want to hear more, Tavis and I dive deep in it, and then we link to a lot of the research and stuff in there. But before we talked, I was like, what do you think about this? She's like, I take it 5 grams a day.
5 grams in the morning.
And so, yeah, not being afraid, men or women. Talk about cramping on that, people's fear of cramping.
Oh, yes. So that is definitely a myth that we're trying to bust. Anybody that says that they're going to not take creatine because they don't want to cramp, that's just a misconception. So no research. And let me tell you, creatine is the most researched sports supplement you will come across.
Thousands and thousands of studies.
I mean, it's unreal how much. And not one of them have shown that creatine has caused cramping. It's all anecdotal. And I believe what happens is, say somebody starts to take creatine and they just push themselves because they know they're taking creatine and they want to get stronger and faster, and they push themselves and they may not hydrate as well as they typically do. And maybe that's what has led to the cramping, but it's not creatine directly causing cramping. So
don't be
busted,
afraid.
And just make sure to hydrate
right.
as you would.
And that 5 grams can go in all types of different drinks. Yep. The only thing we'd probably say, steer clear of having caffeine around it. Having caffeine in close proximity to when you're taking creatine, it can offset the benefits of creatine. So making sure that you're having, you can put it with anything. Like there's these good like lemon drinks, I think the brand is Suja or one of those. And so I'll put it in that. You can put it really in anything.
Mm-hmm. And pairing it with a carbohydrate source. So maybe you put it in some orange juice.
Mm-hmm.
It has shown to help get into the muscles a little bit more efficiently.
On the topic of brands, the other one I wanted to ask you about is if there's specific proteins that you lean toward, brands you recommend. Similar question as creatine.
So those 3 to 4 companies that I just listed, Clean Athlete, Momentous, Thorne, Cytosport, they have great proteins out there. I do like Dymatize. I don't know if you ever tried those. They have really good flavors. Another one, and I can't use them with our athletes, but personally, I love the Ghost proteins.
Okay.
Especially, it's a vegan one, but typically I do whey, but this particular flavor comes in plant-based, and it's called pancake batter.
You can't get enough.
It is to die for.
And tell us the reason she says she can't use it for athletes, not because the product is bad, but because it's not tested.
It's not tested,
mm-hmm.
right. And I actually emailed that particular company. I asked them, hey, would y'all be willing to get tested?
Right.
I think our athletes would really enjoy it, but they haven't gotten back to me.
How could they not?
I know.
I mean, are you kidding? Any other supplements that are kind of, that you would say have really benefited athletes? We talked creatine, protein. It could be protein powders. We talked bars a little bit. Really, pickle juice. We could almost look at that as a supplement, because you can buy pickle juice shots. You could get it from your jar of pickles, but there's a brand called Pickle Juice that's there.
Mm-hmm.
Any other supplements that are sort of your go-tos for athletes or for yourself personally from a performance standpoint?
So there's good emerging research about collagen.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of our guys do take collagen for their ligaments and their
mm-hmm.
tendon health. I know some people take it for their skin, hair, and nails,
mm-hmm.
which also is a good thing. But our guys do help. It does help our guys with the strength of those tissues.
And if nothing else, it's a good protein source also.
Yep.
And collagen is one that you can put in coffee, iced coffee. It dissolves pretty well. Put it in smoothies,
mm-hmm.
anything like that. Any others?
So a lot of our guys are really into taking magnesium. And typically in the evening time, it does help, I guess, relax
mm-hmm.
your muscles. It's not like melatonin where it's going to put you to sleep, but they do feel a more restful sleep when they take magnesium toward the end of the night. So that's something
like before bed.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So magnesium, your omega-3 fish oils for their brain health and obviously heart health as well. So those are really big with our guys.
So protein powders, a collagen supplement, which can also kind of double also a little bit as a protein powder. The Ghost is your pancake batter favorite. Creatine, and there are other brands, but the ones that Jamie mentioned are those that are tested that would be approved for use with the NFL players. We talked about hydration. Any other resources that, before we shift over to our Jamie personal Q&A, any other resources that you would share for listeners to kind of turn to for guidance?
Yeah. So the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics has a subgroup. I think they changed the name of it recently. SHIPN, as it sports, performance, human nutrition, I guess. They have some really good resources when it comes to athletes and nutrition, and then just active people in nutrition. The Collegiate and Professional Sports Dietitians Association, they're sportsrd.org. They have some good educational resources on their website. Even the Gatorade Sports Science Institute, I love going to their page. They have really great resources. That's GSSI. I don't know their exact website, but they have really good information for athletes and active performance nutrition.
I'll link to those three that you talked about. I'll also link to our podcast from way back when.
Yes.
I do think it may have been within the first 3 months that I was even doing the podcast. And so thank you again for that. And I think it'd be interesting to hear the difference in.
It would.
I remember being like so nervous, and I had everything mapped out of how I would say it. And then I'll also link to the podcast that Tavis and I did on creatine. So we'll have that there. And then anything else that we would say is priorities before we shift over to our rapid fire Q&A for Jamie?
I would have to end with just saying consistency.
Yes.
That is such key. Any of our guys that have done really well with maybe changing body composition or just the way that they eat, anything like that, it's because they were consistent. There's no easy way out, and they know that, and they put the time and the effort and dedication into whatever they were trying to do. And it's because they were consistent.
And it's not consistent for days or weeks, but we're talking months.
Yes.
And in many cases, years. It's really sticking with it. And that's for all of us. It's for us. It's our listeners. It's for, the student athletes. It's so easy to say, well, I tried it and it didn't work. And if we're doing it for a week or 10 days or 2 weeks, that's not enough. Like any of the fueling approaches we talked about, the supplements that we talked about, any kind of a workout, like we have to put that time in. And if we really want to have the results. Right. Thomas Morstead, a former Saints player, he had also done the podcast, I think around the same time you did. And, one of the things that he said, his was, I'll link to it also, but it was a lot on motivation specifically. And, he could be like a motivational speaker. Yeah. And he is, let's be honest. But one of the things that I'm not going to say it as he said it, but do your priorities match your goals? And if your goal is to be the best, in whatever that sport is or whatever it is, what are your priorities? Because if you're going out, if you're doing all these things, if you're not making your workouts or fueling a priority, then it's hard to say that your behaviors are matching what your goals are.
Right.
And so I think all of that, thinking in that way is also all that leads to that consistency. Yep.
Truly.
That every decision is going to it forms these layers of really big changes over time. Yep. All right. So our Jamie questions. These are questions from our person who helps with the social media management. With myself, also with Eat Fit, and I really like these. So these are really objective questions. Why did you become a dietitian? And we can kind of do a rapid fire.
Yeah. So I was in high school getting ready for LSU cheerleading tryouts, and my grammar school coach suggested that I go see a dietitian to make sure that I was doing everything I could to get stronger and eat right and be prepared for tryouts. And then after that meeting with that dietitian, I knew from then on that's what I wanted to do.
How old were you?
I was, 17 or 18, right before I went to college.
So it was actually the experience of meeting with a dietitian yourself, and you said, I've got to do this.
That's what I got to do.
That was mine too.
Really?
Yeah, it was. Wow. And that dietitian who I met with is, her husband now works with my husband. So I do see her from time to time, and
Wow.
I'm like, wow, she was why I came into this profession. What's the most common myth about nutrition that you run into?
Um, Recently is that everything that you see on TikTok and Instagram is true. Because I have so many friends, family, athletes. Hey, I saw on TikTok that fill in the blank. And I'm like, okay, I love social media, but then you have to be really careful of
Right.
what you believe. Are they trying to sell something? Are they just trying to say something to get likes? So just be very weary of that and don't believe everything that you see and hear on there.
I love that. Is there a story of an athlete transformation that has really impacted you? Something that you could like say that was like just such a standout of a transformation or success?
Yeah. There was actually recently I had an athlete who I taught him about counting calories and macros, which I usually don't have our athletes do, but he really wanted to
He
kind
had
of
the interest.
he did. And so he was trying to change body composition a little bit and just the way that he was eating. And so after teaching them, a few days later, he's like, it's just amazing that, I didn't realize that certain foods were high in fat and this one was low in protein. And he just really got to see his diet as a whole. And then a few weeks later, we did a body comp on him and he stepped on, I gave him his results, and he goes, wow, it's just amazing what you can do when you eat the right things. And when he said that, I was like, yes.
It was like everything was full circle. You're
Right.
like, and my work with this moment is done. You're
Yes.
like, oh,
Yes.
it's so rewarding. Your number one piece of advice for someone who's just starting to think about making nutritional improvements.
Yeah. Baby steps.
Mhm.
I know everybody has an ultimate goal. Maybe if you have some sort of body composition goal, maybe just want to make some small tweaks with your diet, whatever it may be. Don't just change everything because it's hard. It's hard.
Mhm.
So baby steps and enjoy those little successes along the way.
I think I can't say that enough. I just want to echo that. It's the pressures that we put on ourselves, the impatience that we feel. We said it a bit ago, consistency. We try something for a week, 2 weeks, and we think that we're not successful or we think that we failed at it. And so the baby steps sound slow and painfully slow, but it's truly go with one thing, get that under your belt, add the next. And that's going to make it so much more sustainable. I echo that completely. Last question. What motivates you to stay current in this field, to continue to, be ahead of the curve and learning about performance fueling?
Yeah. So as registered dietitians, what RDs do is we help people and we help them with their health and their lifestyle and whatever it may be. So we want to make sure when we are helping them, we are giving them correct information because nutritional research, I mean, new stuff comes out all the time. It's ever changing. And so we don't want to give them false or wrong
Mhm.
information. So staying on top of that, making sure that we are relaying correct um, guidelines and just whatever it may be, we want to make sure that we're guiding them correctly.
A lot of times people will say, well, the messaging keeps changing. Eggs
Mhm.
used to be bad and now they're not, or whatever. Science is evolving. It's not that something was wrong and now it's right or whatever, but it's, you know, back, 10 years ago, if there was a message being given at that time, that would have been what we knew to the best of our knowledge. And as research evolves, 10 years ago, Jamie and we probably neither of us would have been taking creatine because we would have thought it's more of a weight gain, it's
Yep.
more of a muscle building type thing. Over time, we see all of this research that is saying otherwise, and we see, wow, I could benefit from this. My dad could benefit from it, And so it's evolved. And so it's not that before was wrong, but it's that science evolves and us staying current on it is helping us to be able to guide the athlete who's seeing the changes and having that evolution himself.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much for this. I
Thanks
really
for having me
appreciate it.
again.
Yes. Well, I look forward to the next thing that we can like partner up on. If there's anything that you have that's kind of coming across your plate or you want to share, we can do that as well.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, Molly.
I always love my time with Jamie. She is so incredibly positive, so knowledgeable, also incredibly real world in her application and nutritional guidance. I admire what she has created in the space of performance fueling and the professional sports arena. She's done just amazing things and is so well respected in that area. We talked about a lot of different links and different resources, and I'll include those in the show notes of this episode. And always let me know what you think as you incorporate things that Jamie talked about into your own life. I always want to hear about it. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. If you like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. If you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.